More seconds. Oh, so sorry. Will it change right now? All right, clap your hands. Once you hear my voice. Yes, it is 8 o'clock sharp. Literally, exactly 8. We can have aligned clocks. I forget the actual terminology. Synchronized watches. Yeah, that's 23andMe result. It says I'm like gonna get like a slightly increase for like late onset Alzheimer's. And now every time I forget a word, I'm like freaked out. Anyway, it's like messing with me. Okay, how did we do on the first one? Writing a function that removes the vowels. Yay, nay, okay. All right. Right, so these are the types of problems, again, that you could expect to see come Sunday. Let's go over it. First thing we need to do is what? Declare a function, right? So I'll call this disim val. And it takes in what data type? String. Right? I saw some people put string or array, and then I saw people treat it like an array. So that was less attractive, eh? So, what's the first thing we should think about doing? Henry.
You should set up and read the vowels.
Okay, so he says we need to keep track of the letters that we want to avoid. So we could do that with an array or a string. That sounds like a good idea. So I'll say let letters to avoid. And I'm just going to do like A, E, E, I, O, U, U. Okay. What? So far we're okay with that? It could be an array too, Henry, don't worry. Includes works on both strings and arrays. What's the next thing we need to do? What might we want to do? Galvin? Yeah, we're going to need to loop through the string. Okay, I like that. What kind of loop should we use? For loop? Maria? Well, for each is going to be an array method. Right, that's somewhat of a trick question, but I was actually pointing to you because it's something we talked about a minute ago. Can you speak up? Okay, so filter would be cool, but if we do filter, we have to split the string first, because filter is an array method. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to put in the extra time of splitting. I want to try to write something relatively efficient. For of? Okay, yeah. So Maria says, why don't we do a for of? Because this is a string, and that way we want each character, and that way with a for of we can isolate each character. So okay, let's try that. So for let character of string. Okay, so now we have each character. And what do we need to do now? What's next? Danielle.
Saying what we want to do, like once if it finds the letters to avoid.
Okay, so Danielle says we got to check if that character is inside of our letters to avoid. So we can write a condition. Say if letters to avoid dot includes our character, or do we care if it includes or if it doesn't include? Really, right? We want it to not include. Right? So if letters to avoid does not include our character, what do we want to do with that? So if I return, what's going to happen? What happens if I return in a for loop? Deja. What happens if I return in a for loop?
Oh, it stops, right? Okay.
It stops, right? Because as soon as you say return and it hits it, the game is over. So we can't return in the for loop unless we want to specifically end it. Yeah, Henry?
Don't you want it to go by empty string?
What do you mean by go by an empty string?
So like you know how it says string. So you want that specific string to run through the if loop. I mean the for loop, right?
Right?
So but where is it going to?
Exactly. Yeah. So it should go somewhere, right? We need to keep this character. We need to keep track of this character because it's one of the characters we want. So let's go ahead at the top and create a new variable for us that we can add to. So we'll say let output and assign that to an empty string. What? Well, I did the exact same thing. So if it's a character that we want to keep, because our letters to avoid does not include it, we'll just do output equals output plus our character. Yep, we also could have done plus equals too. Just wrote it like this because switch it up. And so anything else we need to do to get this function complete? Anyone who hasn't spoken yet? Will, we missing anything? Return, yeah, there we go. Where should we return? Right where we're at? Well, I got to do it on a new line because we don't put return on the same line as a curly bracket. But return output. All right, so let's test it. We'll say console.log, and we'll say this inval, and we'll pass in a nice little string. Hello, everyone. How are you? We'll save it, and we'll run it, and we get Hilvern, her, or right. So it's working, right? Yeah, Farrah.
Could you show us how to do it without includes?
I would use includes.
I remember the beginning when to do it without includes in the beginning of the class. I just don't remember how.
It would be, so I kind of did that yesterday, where I essentially wrote my own includes. I forget the method. It was no dupes way number 6, I think. Like this, where I would just add a whole nother for loop, but I would iterate through my through the letters to avoid. I would recommend using includes for that. All right. How did we do on the second one? Takes a string and returns whether or not it's a palindrome. Yay, nay, okay. Ooh, lots of nays. What was tough about it? What was difficult?
For me, it was just like, how do I get a loop to run? Because how do you pronounce it?
Palindrome.
A palindrome is basically a mirror word.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get a loop to, like, how do you set up a loop that will run and back?
Cool. Okay. Fair. So Henry says it's tough because he's trying to conceptualize how to have, in his head, kind of 2 loops working at the same time, doing inverse. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna go over that. So let's create one. Say const is pally. I'm gonna call this one the easy way. Right, this is not necessarily the way that I recommend, as it's going to be slower than a lot of things. But just to show you, we could do a comparison of our string. This is the way Farrah posted today in our Slack channel. So if you're keeping up with Slack, you would see this one. And you could say equal to string dot split. We could turn this into an array. Then we could reverse it. Dot reverse. This shouldn't take a 0, and then we could just join it again, right? And that would tell us whether or not it's a palindrome. This is not the ideal answer. It's the shortest answer, but it's not the ideal answer because we're doing 3 iterations for something that we only need to do 1 iteration of. But we can try it, A, B, B, A. We'll see that this should give us back an error. Who wants to tell me it? 226. Thank you. True. And if we'll just throw in something here, we'll see that it's false. Okay. So that's like, if you can't remember how to do it, that's how I would do it, right? Another way, we could do it with a while loop with 2 pointers. So we could have is pal, I'm going to say while. Takes in a string. And we could have let I start at 0. We could have let j start at where? What? Yeah, right? String.length minus 1 to get the last character. When would we want this while loop to terminate? At 0 or, right, when I is greater than j? So while I is less than j, let's keep running this loop. So we'll say if string at I does not equal string at j, that's when we want to throw in a game over, right? We want to just return false right away. Otherwise, I gets incremented, j gets decremented. And at the end, if we made it outside of the while loop, we can safely say that we can return true. Right? So let's try that. We'll copy our code from line 29. Is pal wow. And there we go. We got the false for that. We'll remove the C and we'll get the true. Okay. Questions on that? Does that feel manageable? All right. There's one other way we could do it with that I can think of right off the bat. Like, I mean, I can actually think of 2 ways, but I'm only going to do one more way. This is with the for loop. So we can say const is pal for loop. Takes in a string. The point of this is that there's like many ways to skin a cat, right? Right, Ashia? And we can say for let I equals 0, while I is less than, well, we want to do half the length of the string, right? String.length. No need to go all the way through it. Divide by 2. I plus plus. Well, I don't know what that is. I plus plus. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so now we have a for loop that's going to go up halfway through. And we can do a similar set of logic where we can just say if string at I, if that does not equal string at I, string at string dot length, sorry, minus 1, because that's give us the end, minus I will return false. If I could spell. And then at the end of all that, we can safely assume that we are returning true. Right, so if we walk through that with a pen, do we have a dry erase pen? Here you go. Nice. A, B, B, A. I is set to 0, right? So we say, okay, our length is 4 divided by 2. I is less than that, right? So we should continue. And we'll say, okay, string at I, so string at 0, is that equal to string at string.length, so 4 minus 0 minus 1, so add string at 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Are those equal? They are, so we'll continue. Right, I gets incremented up to 1. String, so 1 is here now, right? And we say string at string length, so 4 Minus 1 is 3. Minus 1 is 2. So 0, 1, 2. They're equal. Continues. I gets moved up now to 2. That's not less than the mapped out floor of our length divided by 2. So the loop ends and we return true. Does that make sense? That logic. I think the while one is the most straightforward. That's my favorite. But the for loop's kind of slick too. Yeah, Henry? Yeah. So the while loop is just setting an I and a J on either end and just moving them together. Yeah. See how?
The one with the amount of floor divided by 2, are we checking from the box to both sides?
Are we checking from the what?
The both sides, like from the end and from the top?
Well, yeah, because in that check where we're saying string at I not equal to string at string dot length minus 1 minus I, this check allows us to check both sides. This gives us that mirror effect.
If you didn't write the if statement, you would have done it true.
What do you mean by that? I would have.
Like a full loop J, but incremented backwards.
No, because then it wouldn't move. The inside one would go all the way. Then it would go like this. It wouldn't work that way. Sorry? We wouldn't want to put loops inside of loops for this. It will give us the wrong answer. Unless Brutus has got something. Which is, if you find a loop in the loop, let me know, Brutus. Or anyone. I'm still pretty excited about that using filter yesterday. Also, she wrote a really cool my reduce. So, you wrote a really cool my reduce.
No, not me. Kevin did.
Nice. Kevin. Way to go, Kevin. And Ashia for showing it to me. Okay. Are we feeling all right on those two problems? Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit more object-oriented programming because we're building our Hangman game, and I think a lot of us are having trouble with it. So let's go ahead and make a new project. Okay, so I'm just going to go over to here, and we can make this together. I'm going to make a game. Yep. Yeah, I am recording. Thank you. Thank you, Will number 2. So we're going to call this Mictor, and I'm going to call this Russian roulette. Roulette? I don't know how to spell. That's close. It's too late. It's already in there. CD. So this seems like kind of a risky game. But why not, right? Let's figure it out together. Touch, and we can have I think we're going to need a game.js. This will handle the playing of the game. What else do we need in a game of Russian roulette? Players? Okay. So we can have a human player. .js. Should we get more players? I guess we could have a computer player. And what else do we need for this game? A what? A gun, right? We need a revolver. Or what do they play? I don't know the types of guns. Revolver? Okay, I thought so. So let's make a revolver.js. No, nobody plays with a shotgun, Henry. Anything else we need for this game? No. No, if this is really sensitive to you, I'm sorry. So the way you play the game is you spin. Do you spin every time, or do you just spin once? Oh, okay, I didn't realize so many people here have played before. All right, so we get to decide which version we want to play, right? All right. Just one time, right? All right. All right, clap your hands once you hear my voice. I know we're very excited to blow each other's brains out, but let's take it easy. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and build this game. So we'll open it in code. And here we go. Game on. So let's think about the actual moves. Let's think about the revolver first. That seems like a good place to start. So let's go ahead and make a revolver class. And then what needs to happen? So it needs to have some kind of chamber. How many chambers are in a revolver? 6. We'll play with 6. So let's create so the task over the next 5 minutes is to create a revolver class that initiates with 6 chambers with one of them being a bullet of some representation of that, and then to create a method called randomize, right?
Okay, but this is not the one.
It's like it's in a lot of different. So it's not necessarily one right way. All right, let's keep moving along. Yeah, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. All right, so how did this go?
I was just trying to get it.
So we're like all over the place. I noticed. So I'm going to offer a little bit more guidance, and then we'll go back into it. Yeah. So of course, the first thing we need to do is have a class called Revolver, one of the greatest Beatle albums, and this starts with a constructor. Does our constructor need to take anything? Not really, right? I mean, maybe we want to give our gun a name or a color or something, but it doesn't need anything, right? Like, I'm not going to put anything here because I don't think it's necessary for now. It could take in, like, number of chambers, right? Chamber count. So we could play with different size guns, right? So then it becomes, the next question is, how do you want to visually represent a chamber? Right? That's kind of a tricky question. I saw some people just put a number. I think that's going to be tough because I think we're going to need actual spaces. I might think of this as an array with spaces. So we can go ahead and say let chambers equal, and I'm going to create a new array, and I'm going to make it the length of the chamber count, and I'm going to fill it with just null. Okay, so right now, whenever I create a gun, it's going to be brand new, it's going to be empty. Okay? So this is how I'm building it. You can build it differently. If you're having trouble, I recommend building it the same way that I'm building it. All right, and so now I want you to continue, because I know we didn't have complete time. I want us to come up with a way to add bullet and how that is going to work for you. And also spin, what's that called? Barrel? Okay, that's what I thought that. Spin barrel function. And this is going to kind of rotate your array some random amount, right? If you build yours different, that's okay. Yeah, just real quick, I made a mistake here. Thank you, Isaiah, for pointing it out. Right, this should be this Pythagoras, right? Not left. Yeah, see, we had a whole room of people, nobody told me. All right, hold on. Because like otherwise, and it's not fair. Every time a bull gets fired, that's why all these games all of a sudden they get a lot more complicated very quick. And it's fun that like you don't realize how complicated it is. All right, let's talk about this. All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. All right, how did this go? Adding a bullet, not adding a bullet. All right. So we kind of have to decide how we want to add a bullet. Personally, I think we would open the gun and just add it in the first spot. And if this first spot had a bullet, I would keep moving until there's an open space. Does anybody have an issue with that? So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? I open the gun, this is the first spot, this is where the bullet would go, and then I would spin it. If there's already a bullet in there, I would just go to the next spot and spin it again. And then you might go, oh, there's 2 bullets, maybe I'd add a rule then that every time a bullet gets fired, we respin the gun. Does that sound fair? Is that a fair way to play this game? Right? Right. But my point is you can make this any way you want, right? And this is also like a game that may seemingly seem simple. If you decide to expand upon it, all of a sudden, like there's a lot more things to account for, right? And it all becomes like design choices. Which is better? Which is worse? I don't know. You know. Jay says he wanted to put it like opposite side, but then I at the same argument. Then if I just shot a blank, then I know the next one's blank because they weren't beside each other. So it's kind of that's why I would think every time you'd have to spin it if a shot gets fired. I don't know, problem solving. So for this, I would do some kind of loop. So I would say like for let I equals 0, while I is less than this dot chambers dot length I plus plus, and I guess I should have like let loaded equal false. So right now it's not loaded. Oh, actually I can just use a break, right? So I don't need that. So we'll just say like, hey, if this dot chambers, so if this is not a value, so like bang it, I'm going to set this spot to true. So I'm going to say this dot chambers, oh, this should be at I, right? Sorry. This dot chambers at I, and we'll set that to true. True for me represents a bullet, and the very first spot of the gun, of the array, represents what's next to be fired. Oh, thank you. So if I've added a bullet, what should I do? Yeah, but I've already added a bullet. I don't want to keep adding bullets. So how can I stop? Break, right? I can break out of this loop if I've added a bullet. All right, so let's see if this works. So let's go down to our bottom and say let gun equal new revolver. We'll invoke it. Let's log our gun. And then let's call gun.add bullet. And we will log our gun. And then we'll call add bullet again just to see if we could add 2 bullets, which we're assuming will be the first spot and the second spot, yeah? And we'll log our gun again. And let's see what we get. So open up our terminal. No.revolver, and we see chambers is null, true, and true. So that's not really what we expected, right? Maybe we'll try this dot. So maybe this isn't working the way we think it's working. Oh, it was expecting to take an account. We didn't do that. Right? It started so it initialized as an empty array. So that's good. That means it maybe is working correctly. Right? So we started with 0. We added our first bullet. And then we added a second bullet. Fair? Sin, what's not fair about it? What if we have like 3 players and we only want to do 1 set of loading? All right, so we could, well, regardless, I can still just add 1 bullet, right? All right, don't play Russian roulette with Sin. He's a real stickler for the rules, all right? All right, so then let's write a spin barrel. How do we do on that one? You're getting undefined for the same? Well, you're probably console logging add bullet. I'm not. My add bullet's not returning anything. It's just a side effect function. So spin barrel. How should spin barrel work conceptually? It needs to do something random, but it should keep the order of the bullets still, right? So if I did, despite Sin's wishes, have a bullet here and a bullet here, and like I spun it, right? Even if this spun, these should stay the same distance apart from each other, right? So we can't just do random, but we can loop it a random amount. So that's what I propose we do. So I'll say like let spin do math.floor dot math.random. So I agree with that. And we'll multiply that by our chambers length. This dot chambers dot length. Okay, so maybe it's 0 and it ends up in the same spot. Thank you. And maybe it doesn't, but we still have to do something with this, right? So I'm going to use a loop. So I'm going to say let I, or for, right? Because for loop is great for from one number to another number. So I'm going to say let I, set that to 0, while I is less than our spin, I plus plus. And for this, I'm just going to shift off the front and push it onto the back, because then the array will be rotated. Right, let's think about how that might work. If I had 1, 2, and 3, right, I would shift off the front and add it to the back. That would be like something spinning, right? So let's go ahead and spin. So I'll just say spin.push, spin.shift. All right, this evaluates first. It will give us the first element, and then it will push this onto the back of the array. I'm treating the front of the array like where it would fire. Let's test it out. So we've got our gun. We'll console log our gun. We can say, well, everywhere where it says add bullet now. Oh, we need to add a bullet, right? So I'll do that first. So we make a gun, we add a bullet, and then we can spin the barrel, spin the bottle, and we'll print it each time. All right, so we're expecting to see that bullet move around somewhere in our array. And we have an error. Spin.shift is not a function. Ah, right? Because spin is just a number. What am I actually looking for? This dot chambers. Right? This is why we test the code. Okay, so we see that the bullet started here, it moved to here, it moved to here. It looks pretty random to me. Yeah? The bullet is moving some random amount, spinning around. Yeah. Sure. So let's spin the barrel and then add another bullet so we don't know if they're going to be beside each other. And we can duplicate these lines and really see some stuff happen. Right, so we added one bullet, we added a second bullet, we saw they were, after we'd spun it, we had one there, we spun it, one ended up here and here, we spun it again, one ended up here and here. Remember, this is a loop, so this is still just two apart as it moves around. Right? It's a circular concept. So it looks further, but it's still just still has just one in between. Cool? All right. So what else do we need for a revolver? What's the most part of the game? Most important part of the game? Yeah, we gotta like pull trigger or fire, however you want to call it, right? So go ahead and write that and think that should probably return either the bullet or not the bullet, right? So you have to be able to fire consistently. So if you don't actually spin a red, you can distract. That's what I'm firing. Yes. After that, Because right now, you're not guaranteed that you're going to fire every single time. Right? There's not a guarantee. And you also should be removing that mold, right?
Right.
Oh, I guess you see it. And then you kill down to like a slow
What happens if you don't have it?
I don't think he wants to split it. He wants it to go to the next chain. So
All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. All right, so we're going to keep moving because I want to make sure we have enough time to do everything, especially because this is kind of supposed to be a representation of how you can start thinking about tic-tac-toe. Not tic-tac-toe. Hey, man, I'm obsessed with tic-tac-toe, so I say it constantly. Okay, so we have a pull trigger, right? That's essentially the next thing. Pull trigger. You could call it something else. It's okay. Does it take any arguments? No. And so what actually happens when you pull the trigger of a gun, of a revolver? It maybe fires, right? Kelvin? Right? So it either fires or it doesn't, but what else happens? But Will, speak through Giovanni.
If the shot is actually fired, like you said, game's over.
Okay, so if the shot's fired, the game's over, sure.
It could either fire or not fire, but then also it turns one.
That's right? The revolver is going to keep turning. Okay, so if the revolver is going to keep turning, and I'm going to designate the very first spot in the array to be my thing fired, I'm going to say let fired equal this dot chambers dot shift right? That's going to give me back whatever gets fired. I'm going to say at this point, I don't necessarily care if it's a bullet or not, but I still got to move the barrel, right? So I'm just going to say this dot chambers dot push. Now, no matter what, I know that whatever's getting pushed in is now empty, right? If it either fired or there was nothing in there anyway, so I'm just going to push a null, and then I can return fire, right? So I'm returning whatever I got back, either a true or a null, which is a truthy or a falsy, essentially, yeah? Questions on that?
Yeah, you said line 27 is what you got?
Which line? 27? I am pushing in, oh, is this? I can't read the lines. This is 27, right? Okay. This is taking the next spot. So if this is the 0th spot on my array, I'm taking this out. But since I know it's going to rotate, no matter what, it's either fired or it didn't, right? But that barrel is going to be, or that chamber is going to be empty. So that's why I'm then pushing in a null at the end. All right, so let's try it out. So we will add a bullet, spin the barrel, and then we can just call gun.pull trigger. We can console log that, console.log gun.pull trigger. And we'll do that a couple times. And we'll see it move, hopefully. Oh, I didn't invoke anything. Beautiful. Thank you. Oh, too far. So we see that it keeps moving forward. All right? So we got pretty lucky on that. We can run it again. This time it fired right away. Yikes. So, and then it was empty. So we see that it is working, that it's keeping this array. And it keeps doing the 2 spots. Let's see if it ever goes somewhere else. Yep. So it's randomly going and then it's moving. So things look pretty good. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Okay, so let's move on from this and build out a human player class. So what does our human player need? A name? Just for one human. Doug? A what? A grave? And a dies? Oh, okay. So we could have like an alive or dead, I guess. What? Number of tries? Maybe. I don't know if we need that. Right? I think we really just need like a name. I think we could build something for fun that uses read line that's like asks for their last words, so at least it has like some time for us to wait instead of it just like being done. Otherwise, our human player isn't really doing anything. It's essentially the computer player. But yeah, and maybe it has a status of alive, being a Boolean. So go ahead and make a human player class. I'm not going to write exactly what I think you need. Get it out here and see what we can do. All right, let's keep moving. I just want to make sure we have enough time. So this class is pretty small. How do we do on this one? Yay, nay, okay. Okay, decent. Let's just kind of blast through it. We'll say class. We'll make a quick human player. Constructor should take in what? The name. Let's say this dot name equals name. I'm going to give this dot like alive equals true. Maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. I'm not really sure yet. I haven't decided. And then we'll just say like get last words. And let's just go ahead and return read line dot question. What are your last words? And then if we want to use that, we need to import it, right? So I'm going to do const read line, and I'm going to make this require read line sync. I probably don't have access to read line sync right now, is what I'm going to predict, but let's just see real quick. Const, I don't want to play this game. I'll say Fred, new human player, Fred dot get last words, and we'll run node at human player, and it says what are your last words. Okay, so I still have access to it. Just read line sync, same line that you have at the top of your hangman file. If for some reason you don't have access to it, you'll have to npm init and hit enter a bunch of times, and then do npm install read line sync. Since I'm doing this all in like the notes, I've already installed it before, so I still have access to it. And then I'll say like, sorry mom, and there we go. Okay, is this enough for the human player class? Okay, I agree. So let's go ahead in our computer class and think about which methods our computer class may need and to build out a computer class as well. So go ahead and do that over the next 5 minutes. Right now, if I say all right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. So I know I didn't give a lot of time for this, but that's because this one was a little bit of like a trick. So every player, like if we're going to call methods on players and we're going to write a game that's going to change players, the game's not going to determine who's what and who is what, right? So the game is just going to take the player and call the method on the player that it expects. So computer needs to have the exact same methods as human players. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to go to my computer player. I'm going to paste it, and I'm just going to change the name to computer player. I'm going to have it default to the name of robot. And its last words, we can't use read line because read line is going to wait for a response. So my computer could return nothing, or I'll just have it return blorp, because I think that's something a computer would say right before it dies, potentially. Or blorp, I wish I was human. Kind of make it like a new level of sadness in the game. Yeah, Will.
Would it work if I create only one class called players and then extend to computer players?
I think you would. It would be better to extend the computer player than the human. But for something like this, you would just make the two separate classes. And this is more to represent like hangman, right? Your hangman, if you want your players to be interchangeable, they have to have the exact same methods. What they do in the methods may be different. Hence, get last words for this one just returns blorp, I wish I was human, while the human one actually waits for information. All right, so we have to export these. So we're going to do module.exports, computer player. Let's also go back into human player and export that. So that's going to look like module.exports equals human player. And we should also export our revolver. I could have done that while I was writing these, but oh well. Easy to go back. So who needs to have access to all of these things? The game, right? The game is the middleman. It's the one that's going to connect everybody and run, keep everything running. So we're going to go, okay, let's do the game. So we should import all of these things here. We're going to say const human player, and that's going to require /human player. For this one, I'm going to do computer player. And for this, I will do revolver. So, right? That's how we require. It's like as if we wrote it all in one file, but now it's separated so that it's a lot cleaner and a lot more readable. Okay, so let's think about what the game needs to take in, right? This is the rest. So a lot of the logic was in the revolver, and now we have to figure out how to actually run this game. So what I suggest, and this is what you're going to, so we're going to go write a game class. I think when you play Russian roulette, can you play with multiple players?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? More than two, I mean? Okay, so maybe we should think of a way that it accepts players. I would do that as an array. Set accepts array of players. Should have a current player, right? Should have a play that runs until, I'm going to let you think of that, until when? Good spell. We'll get last words, then print words, then pull trigger. Should have switch players. Okay? So this is the outline, right? I'm writing my outline pretty similar to the way I write the outlines for like our hangman game. So, except I think my spelling was a little bit better in the other one. So think about these, work on these. Let's spend about 20 minutes on them, 15, 20 minutes. Let's don't have time to go over it. So maybe 15 to 20. Just do one thing at a time.
Oh, right. Okay, that's a lot. So at this point, it's like, you want to show up, right?
I think I have to go over because I don't want to screw it out of time. All right, clap your hands once you're going to hear my voice. I know we're not done with it, but we're nearing the end of the class. So I want us to get through this because I think this will help us form our hangman games a bit more too. So, okay. First, we have to start off with a game class. Class game, right? That was all right. It says it accepts an array of players. So in my constructor, what's it take in? Players. Perfect. So I'm going to say this dot players is equal to players. This makes it so I can play with multiple people. It says we need a gun. Okay, so I need a gun. My gun, let's see, does it take in a length? I forget, or is it automatically 6? It takes in a chamber count, right? So we're going to say this dot lowercase revolver is equal to new revolver. And we'll pass in, how big do we want our gun to be? I guess 6 we'll stick with. Also, Brandon pointed out to me that I forgot to say .js at the end of this to save my file. So I'm just adding JS at the top so that it will for sure come in clean. Nice catch, Brandon. Okay, should have a current player. Okay. Who should be our current player? Where? Player who?
At 0.
Player at 0? I'm into that. This dot current player is this dot players at 0. So whoever's first is going to get to go first. That's unfortunate for now, but that's fine with me. Let's delete this as we write it. So should have a play that runs until win. Okay, so we'll say play, and we'll say so there's a couple things that need to happen when we first play the game, right? The first thing is we have to add a bullet to the gun, right? So we'll say this dot revolver dot add bullet, and then we should spin the gun, right? This dot revolver dot spin barrel. And then we should keep playing, right? So we'll say while. In this game, when should the game be over? So Rob says, what was it, Rob?
When there's only one player left.
Okay, so Rob says when only one person is left, that's when the game is over. I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to say that's a fair thing. So I'll say while this dot players dot length is greater than 1, we're going to keep playing. Okay, so what's going to happen on a turn? Okay, well, yeah, we're going to say this dot current player dot, and we can ask for their last words, right? So we can say, what was the method we called it? Get last words, right? Dot get last words, because it doesn't matter if it's a human or not. We know that we can get the very last words here. Then we are going to have to pull the trigger, right? So we'll say let fired equal this dot revolver dot pull trigger. So now we've pulled the trigger. So fired is either going to kill the person or not, right? So if it kills the person, we can do this. We can say, hey, if fired, so if that current person dies, we need to do a couple things. What's the first thing that needs to happen? Yeah, we have to eliminate this person from the array. We know that the current player is what spot of the array? The first spot, right? So we can say we can console log something like this dot current player dot name has died. Oh, we should say we can say this dot current. Let's console log a little bit more information in our while loop. So we can say console.log this dot current player dot name. It's your turn, right? So that way we can know whose turn it is, and then it will get their last words. It will fire. So if it's fired, that person has died, and then we should remove them from our players. So I'm just going to say this dot players dot shift. That's going to remove them. And then, since we only added one bullet, we need to add another bullet, right? Does that make sense? Like if we fired and we only had one bullet in the game, we need to add a new bullet and spin it again. So we'll say this dot revolver dot add bullet. This dot revolver dot spin barrel. All right. So every time somebody gets shot, they're removed from our array. A bullet is added to our revolver, and the revolver is respun. So if it wasn't fired, yeah, Giovanni. Yeah, it did remove the bullet. Remember, it took out the shift, it returned that shift, and it also pushed in a null. If you go back to that method. Okay, so if it didn't happen, if they didn't die, what needs to happen? We have to switch players, right? So we're going to call this dot switch players. Okay, so how do we switch players? Well, we probably need to write a method for that as well, right? So for that, we can just say switch players. And we just have to rotate the array, very much like the way we rotated our bullets, right? So I can just say this dot players dot push, this dot players dot shift, right? So that's going to take that person, move them into the back, and then I'll set our current player to be our this dot players at 0. So we're just rotating around the turns. So after all of that, if everyone is dead, eventually we break out of this while loop, which we see is right here. And we can just console log this dot current player, this dot players at 0, right? Because this is the only person left now. Dot name is the sole survivor. Questions on this logic and how things are interacting? I mean, we should run it to make sure that it works, right? Before we get too caught up, but I have a feeling it will most likely work. Calvin.
So the reason they work because at the beginning you invoked a copy of Revolver, and that's why you have access to all the different functions.
Yep, so I have access to a revolver here. This revolver is an instance of revolver. And so I can call any revolver methods on that instance. So I can keep adding bullets, I could spin it, right? I could set this game up differently, right? We could also create a revolver where we have this, like, one less number of chambers as players, and we add a bullet for every, or one less bullet, right? We could add like a giant gun and add so many bullets right off the bat and keep spinning. Like we could set this up a ton of different ways. Yeah, Shia.
When you in the log, when you console log this dot players dot name, should that be a plus instead of a comma?
You can console log and do lots of commas. You can do arguments. It will essentially plus them together. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Good question. All right, so let's just like check if this works in the last. couple minutes here. So let's create a Fred. No Freds in this class, right? Yeah, Isaiah?
We want to switch players still even if fire runs, even if fire turns true.
Well, because they're going to be shifted out. Oh, I think I might know what you're saying. So they got shifted out, but we do have to update our current player. Good catch. Current player is equal to this dot players at 0. So I don't want to like completely rotate it again. I just because then we'll skip somebody that just got popped out or shifted out, but this will reassign after they've been taken out. Great question. Nice catch. Thank you. So we'll have a new Fred. I don't think there's a Fred in this class, so that's good. And we'll call him Fred. So we didn't actually use the dead or alive status, right? We probably don't actually need it. And we'll have let robo equal new computer player. And we'll, I think they already have a default name. And let's have another person. We'll say Becky. And new, her lowercase b. Should be a new human player. Becky. Sorry if you know people with these names. And we'll make a new game. We'll say let new game. Let game equal new game. And we'll pass in this array of Fred, Robo, and Becky. Then we'll say game.play. Right, so this is how we're testing it. I could put all these functions in like a different file, like an index.js file, and then just call the game. So only the class would live in this file. That would probably be slightly better practice instead of having all of these things here. And let's try it. So we're going to go node at game.js. It says, Fred, it's your turn. What's your last words? Freddy. Robot, it's your turn. Robot has died. Becky, it's your turn. Last words. Then there were 2. Robo didn't say his last words. Oh, that's because we're not console logging the last words back. Becky has died. Fred is the sole survivor. Quick game, right? This is how the real game runs. So we could, something we could do is we could capture these last words. Let last words be this. And if we wanted to see everyone's last words, right, we could, like the computers as well, we could console log last words. That way we would have seen Blorp. Let's play again. Fred, it's your turn. What are your last words? We'll say Freddy. Fred has died. Robot, it's your turn. Blorp, I wish I was human. Oh, he made it. Becky, it's your turn. Last words. Nervous. Oh no, Becky was okay. And then Robot, it was his. Robot said Blorp again. It was really wanted that to be their last words. And then Becky is the sole survivor. All right, so the game works. We built a little roulette game that you can play with your friends without any like real consequences. So that's nice. Actually, yeah. We only put readline sync in our human player, right? We only did it in the one spot, but the one time we asked the human a question. Yes. Any other questions on how this is working and how these things are interacting, right? Now, hopefully you'll agree with me that the actual code in this is reasonable, right? This is like a reasonable expectation of code. The hardest part is figuring out how the pieces work together, and that's purely just by putting in time, practice, and gaining experience, right? If I was building my first game for the first time, I would probably have planned that out a little bit better than just thinking about it with you guys. But like, right, if you plan it out, which there is kind of that outline in the Hangman one, and just kind of think about what do we really need for each thing to do, and then how do we call those things. The code itself, not too crazy, right? It's just like pushing in an array, shifting here, changing a couple positions. Definitely something I know we can all do. But if you're still confused about, like, talk to me, right? Let's work on it together. Any other questions? Yeah, of course. All right, please don't tell anybody else that I built this game. I don't know. It's kind of a dark game, so I definitely don't want to get in trouble. I didn't really think that completely through. Okay, great. Thank you. That's it. Have a good weekend. The project's due midnight on Friday. Have a great Halloween, and then we'll go over some stuff. Yeah, Rob?